Hello everybody, and thank you for your patience with us. I am here today at our QIAGEN headquarters in Hilden with Carola, and we would like to talk about career opportunities for young scientists. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will be trying to answer as many of them as possible during our conversation, but we will also try to follow up with them afterwards. So, Carola, thank you for being here with me today.
Welcome.
Maybe you can tell me a bit about your way to QIAGEN and at QIAGEN.
My way to QIAGEN, let's start with that one.
Sure.
Actually, I'm a molecular biologist by training, and during, I think, the finishing period of my diploma thesis, there was a little sort of paper at a board looking for somebody doing literature copies at that time from university libraries. So I did this for a year, probably. Getting information, collecting the papers, delivering it to honestly a secretary in one of the departments, and that was it. So, and when I just started my PhD work, I found out that my boss couldn't pay me the entire time. So it was by incident that at this time I got a call from the secretary where I normally delivered the papers saying, QIAGEN is looking for somebody writing a user manual. I thought about you, would you be interested? If so, call this person here, good luck. So yeah, since I was looking for getting some money to fill my fridge, I did that. I was hired and I started writing this user manual for a product which was not then on the market, which is meanwhile not anymore on the market, and did this for 3 months in a full-time position, actually. Yeah.
So you basically had 2 lives, one life being at QIAGEN, working in industry, and the other life being in the lab?
Not really. It was for these first 3 months, it was full-time at QIAGEN. I told my boss, you can't pay me, I'm really sorry, I need to earn money, so I won't do anything for these 3 months, but I'm coming back. He was okay with that, understood the pressure I was under. But when this was over, because the user manual was very good draft was there, but then they said, you know, we need an online help for the software driving this piece, and so this moved on and on. Like, we need a technical coordinator, marketing coordinator for something. Can't you do this? Can't you do that? So it ended up that while I was doing my entire PhD thesis time, I was spending half a day at QIAGEN then. 8 or 9 a.m. until 1 o'clock, took the bus to the university, did all of my lab stuff, plus the weekends, of course, for the lab work. And when I was finished with my PhD, QIAGEN hired me because, of course, I had 5 years of experience in the company, did know the company, did already grow with the company to a certain extent. And this is how my career at QIAGEN then started, as a full-time employee, I should say.
So when you think back on the decision to actually go into science and start your studies, could you ever imagine yourself not working in a lab?
No, I couldn't. So when I started even studying biology, honestly, it was like this science idea, wanting to discover cool new things, eventually winning the Nobel Prize, of course, doing great things, and it was really a passion to understand how life works in the end, how our bodies work. Lots of things related to that, and I never had in mind going into industry, to be really honest. It wasn't even on the radar that this would be a sort of career opportunity.
So where are you now at QIAGEN?
Yeah, of course, it was a long journey since then, you know that. When I started full-time at QIAGEN, I did technical marketing coordination stuff at first, continued what I had been doing before, but then moved on to product management, which I found retrospectively a really, really great entry point, because you get in contact with so many other departments in the organization. From product management, yeah, I was involved in a merger and acquisition, bringing new product to market from that deal, more or less. I had my own team. I was driving the whole automation, life science automation, I should say, strategy and what we wanted to do with that. I moved to regional marketing for a while. I went back to global, and currently I'm heading the regional marketing teams on the life science side for North America and Europe, which I also enjoy very much. Honestly, each of these career moves also, I learned a lot of new stuff, I have to say. And I like being on both sides of the ocean because of the cultural differences, understanding how things work on one side versus the other side, where I wouldn't say it's 100% different. It's not 100% identical either. But I like getting this overview on and being able to influence more also on the success with our customers in the end. Yeah, sort of working with the sales teams as well, for example.
Sure. So you already mentioned quite a few departments that are involved in getting a product actually on the market. I'm pretty sure our audience doesn't know all of the different departments that are needed for a product development.
Absolutely true. And I put this one slide together showing all these different departments that I mentioned, you mentioned now, because I think when you're not involved in these processes, you have no idea what is all needed. And when you move to the next slide, you see those departments and functions, I should say, where a science background is maybe not is beneficial, if not necessary, actually being highlighted in blue. Because I think this is the one thing I never imagined. What can I do with my science background in industry, sort of? I think everybody working in the lab, including me, because I met sales reps, of course, as well, sort of thinks, yeah, sales is a very natural thing. Where you should have a certain knowledge about science to sell to scientists, definitely. And R&D, of course, we at QIAGEN also do R&D as a very natural connection, but that we have biologists in HR or that we have biologists in tech service, for example, of course you have to have a knowledge about the science to help other customers overcoming their little challenges, or that you need this in training as well, sort of training new employees in terms of having the science background to really explain to them what the product can do, why it's so beneficial and whatnot. But it goes well beyond in terms of quality control, of course, being a department. Business development, we have scientists in business development. We have scientists in IP&L, intellectual property and licensing, where you have to have a certain experience in the science field as well. In operations, so in many functions, science background is really beneficial. And I think this is what I honestly in the lab never thought about.
And I'm pretty sure that most of our audience feels the same today. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your view also as a hiring manager when hiring people right away from the university. So what is important to you and which advice would you have?
Yeah, so good question, because I'm marketing. So there might be an open position for a regional marketing person. So, and the science background is absolutely helpful. Is it a must? Not necessarily. But on the other side, we have scientists applying with no marketing, no real marketing experience. So is this a must? No. Not for me as a hiring manager, and as you said in the beginning, it's my personal opinion. But I would say there are so many things you can learn and get familiar with versus what's always important to me is also what is the energy of this person, to what is the motivation, why somebody thinks I'm a scientist, but I'm really interested in marketing, and what additional steps are people willing to take and maybe already have taken in their free time to say, I go to this course or this course because I think I want to explore this more or less and see whether this is really for me. And to me, this is more important in terms of personality and willingness and eagerness and curiosity to a certain extent, rather than the perfect candidate. Because let's be honest, and you can tell us from your HR perspective, I had one time where I thought, oh, this is a perfect candidate in terms of knowledge and personality and whatnot. But honestly, in the end, this person didn't want to sort of get the job in the end. And I think this is something for people to consider when applying to a job. Give me a good reason to hire you. Give me a reason why you think you're interested in this field, even when you have little or no experience. That's what I would say.
Definitely. When you as a hiring manager go through the different CVs that you receive from your open positions, what is it that attracts you or that makes you think, oh, I want to get to know this person?
I can also tell you what does not attract me. No, it's like sometimes there are CVs, so because I asked myself this question, looking at multiple CVs, and I thought, why am I sort of attracted, I should say, by this one, but not by others? And I find it for myself a very psychologically interesting question. I have to say, I know that some people have this perfect CV, no gaps, no nothing, everything perfect. But honestly, if in the end there are 2 pages of paper citations, yeah, I feel like this is a marketing job, so why should I be interested in this here? Yeah? Or
it's also about self-marketing, right?
It's also about self-marketing, exactly. Thinking about what might a hiring manager be interested in the end. Yeah, I don't mind any breaks, honestly, in the CV. As long as there is a good reason for it, honestly. Yeah. Sometimes I discovered that I myself look at the CV and there is a little gap. Yeah. And honestly, if it is somebody traveled the world for a year, it also tells me something about the person, yeah, in terms of being open-minded, wanting to explore certain things. So I would say sometimes it's even the little breaks and the little sort of unusual things which grab my attention, I should say. I'm not saying the very straightforward ones is nothing that I would consider. Now, I would have different questions probably in an interview situation. Yeah, but this is what I find for myself.
So, talking about interviews, once somebody sparked your attention with their CV and you get to know them in an interview, you already mentioned motivation and energy.
Yeah.
But what is it that people can prepare for before an interview, for example, with you or other people out of the lab?
Yeah. What they can prepare for, it's not so much because you can never predict what questions you're gonna really get. Yeah, so you might be completely caught off guard by something unusual. Yeah? To me, it's more like be prepared. I would say if there is even a question where you think, maybe sort of, I'm not sure how my answer would be taken. Yeah, by the person I'm talking to, I can only say be honest. Yeah, be honest about what you're telling, because I think the person you talk to will realize any escape sort of attempts, I would say. Yeah, why not? I hope there's nothing to hide, yeah, sort of from people applying for a position. But I would say it's more this: be prepared. There will be critical questions. There will be questions where you think, oh, I never thought they would ask this in such an interview. Be prepared for this one, but be yourself is also something which is important to me, because if you pretend to be somebody else, people will also recognize that,
and it will not help you.
Yeah, and you're from HR, so what do you look at? Because would you agree to what I said, or rather not?
Definitely. I think authenticity is super important. Also, when you think about staying in a company for a longer time and developing within a company, you need to be very open and honest about what you want and what you can bring, but also what you demand from the company. So I really feel like authenticity is the most important thing when it comes to
And of course, these are the classical ones, like what can you bring? Classical question, why should I hire you? Yeah? Tell me, why? What is a good reason for me to hire you? And this then, of course, goes to eventually questions like, oh, there is a gap. I'm sort of in terms of I applied for a marketing or a training position, but I might not have the full expertise on something. Yeah, but even
and we don't expect the people to have the full expertise because we know that they might not have it.
Yeah, and as I said, the perfect candidate and bringing all of the different sort of technical skills and soft skills is a very rare event, I would say. And this is, but it's more like, is it a person, sort of who wants to progress also and move things along and has a certain drive in the end is I would say important.
Definitely.
But I agree, sort of authenticity and be honest and don't try to evade things, because it only leads to somebody will ask you this question again. You try to evade the first time, you get the question from another person at the desk in a slightly different form. Sort of how often can you do that is the question.
Definitely. So I'm pretty sure that you met also a lot of people during your way at QIAGEN that also just graduated from university, no matter if it would be with a bachelor's or master's, a PhD, or maybe also a postdoc. So what were the most fascinating ways that you saw at QIAGEN and that you would like to tell our audience about?
Fascinating ways in terms of?
development of the people. So starting in one position and then ending up in something.
Oh, we have lots of people at QIAGEN where I always thought like having started in tech service, moving to training, going into sales, moving back into an R&D function, going into something else again. And this is honestly what I personally like a lot at QIAGEN. I have to say that the organization is, as I see it, very transparent and yeah, you can move from one position to the other, so that it's not like you start in a certain department, and of course there is a way up as well, staying within this swim lane, I would say. But what I always liked at QIAGEN is that you can cross swim lanes as well, and which I think is a great experience, because for me, and this is why I said the GPM job was so great for me, at least, because suddenly you work with R&D and understand how they develop, but you also work with finance, and you learn about ROI calculations, for a project and what needs to be done. You have to have a pretty good financial view. You need to work with the sales team because I always told my GPMs, your sales team is your first customer. Of course there is the end user in the lab, but if you don't support the sales team and help them sell your product, then this is going to be a stony way, let's call it this way. And this is what I always, and you need to work with operations or production, and this is where I think you get to know a lot of these departments and can make up your own mind and decide on, oh, this is really fascinating. I never knew this was working like this, and maybe switch gears a little. Yeah, this is what I always enjoyed in the organization, I have to say.
And I also see this a lot with internal applications, that we have somebody starting in their comfort zone. When they come out of university, they start as a scientist, and then after 2 or 3 years, they see what opportunities a big company like QIAGEN has, and they see all of the different departments and how they interact. It sparks their interest, and then they grow to something else.
Isn't it like in sports? You start in one sport, and then you think like, oh, this is also a cool sport. Let's try this one a little. So I think it's also about getting this insight into, and I think this is difficult when you are probably very well established in a lab and doing science, and you need to seek this opportunity to maybe gain this experience. In an organization, to actually understand better what are all these other departments where science could play a role or is important are actually doing, and what sparks my interest and in terms of maybe switching directions.
Definitely. When you think about people joining QIAGEN right away from university or from academia, what do you see people struggling with the most in adapting to the industry?
I don't think it's the adaptation to industry, honestly. I think it's of course, a lot of scientists probably have in the back of their mind, but this is a company for profit, sort of, and there might be a little emotional hurdle looking at it this way, where I think in reality it is true, of course, because you have to also have the financial power for the next product development, I would say, but in the end, you need to like what you do, is always what I also think. Sort of, if you really, if you love what you're doing, you will do a good job. I'm pretty sure. And it's not, I always said, honestly, when I started with QIAGEN, it was a super tiny company, so I could yell down the hallway to somebody to get something done. Of course, with the growth of an organization, this changes. And sometimes I feel, understanding the organization and how it functions is probably the biggest hurdle, because there are so many functions. Processes, of course, you're getting adapted to probably a little more rigorous processes, SOPs, and the likes, is something that somebody coming out of academia in a lab might not necessarily be used to. I'm saying not necessarily because I know some, of course, also.
Definitely, definitely. So we spoke about the hurdles, but what are things that people can actually make use of when having completed their PhD or master's or bachelor's and then transitioning into industry?
What they can bring to the table, sort of, this is what you're asking. It's, of course, their science knowledge in the end, which, as I said, in certain functions is really, really important. And honestly, specifically with PhD, and it's a little my own experience as well, sort of, it can also be a stony way, yeah, sort of, and having the persistence to say, here's a hurdle, but what can I do to overcome it? And be creative also in terms of trying to think about new ways how to address things. And this is also sometimes nice to have people there from the outside world who bring completely fresh ideas or thoughts to the table. And this is what I think people can also bring to an organization, to an industrial organization, because in research, you're at the pulse of probably technology advancements, yeah, and bringing this to the table, I think, is also a nice asset.
Definitely. If you think back, also in your way at QIAGEN and your career growth, what is it that you enjoy the most now, being in the position that you are?
Honestly, working with people and seeing things coming to fruition. Yeah, what I always like a lot is here's a project, and honestly, deep at heart, I'm still a scientist, because I always thought if somebody dangles this little carrot in front of my nose saying, Carola, here's something which is really difficult, but maybe we thought you could take a look. I think like there must be a solution. Yeah, sort of the typical science thinking. There is something we can do. This must be a problem which can be solved. Which also drives me to a certain extent. And I always think, getting a project or working on a project where, of course, there is the daily work, but working on a project where I really think like, this is cool and interesting, and this is something I'm convinced we can make happen. Yeah, and seeing that, working with all the people involved and pulling them on board and getting your ideas sort of on paper, and in the end making these things become reality, and standing there and saying, yeah, this was really good. Yeah, sort of this really worked out the way I thought it would. This is my personal satisfaction to a certain extent. Yeah, seeing those things happening.
Yeah, we also spoke about this before our live stream started, and saying you get satisfaction from seeing something that you accomplished, and that you think that this is more likely to happen within the industry field than in academia.
It's a tricky statement.
It is.
No. And it's, of course, I always liked lab work. And of course, there is this experiment, it works out, all fine. But I always thought that my end goal was, I worked in an animal model on a disease, yeah, but transferring this into something which would really help patients was so far away that I thought, oops, in these tiny, tiny little steps, I don't think I will ever get there, yeah, which an experiment might work, but the bigger goal always was so far away that I thought that it didn't really make me happy then, yeah, sort of stumbling along, making these tiny progress steps, but thinking, yeah, I will retire without that problem being solved. Yeah, where I thought maybe that's not what I like too much.
Definitely. What is one thing that you would like to have known before starting your science career, if you think back?
My science career. My science career in terms of academia?
Yeah, or something that you would like to tell our audience that they can know that you didn't know.
I'm not sure. So I never thought how interesting it could be, because as I said, when I started, I was really for research and understanding life in the end. And I never thought about, hey, how exciting it actually can also be to work in an industry type of environment. And I can only say, go out there and explore. Yeah, sort of explore what other things are there, and try to find your own little spot where you say, hey, this is maybe the right mixture for me. And there are people who are totally happy in a lab and love it, and perfect, stay there. Yeah, do what you love, do what you like. But if you are at a point where you think like, for whatever reason, I feel it doesn't make me totally happy, I can only say, look around. There is more out there. Yeah? So try to explore other ways.
Yeah. And exploring could be just looking at what jobs do other people have, or exploring could be an internship, or speaking to somebody from the department on job fairs, on congresses, whatever. So
absolutely, try to meet as many people who are in, and it doesn't need to be industry, to be honest. Yeah, it could be organizations providing, it could be marketing organizations, it could be any other, it could be trainings organizations. Yeah, sort of. But try to understand. Is there a need for my science background in this field, and what is it that you or you should ask yourself, what is it that you enjoy? Is it working with sort of wet lab courses, sort of with students, guiding students through experiments? Then maybe you lean towards a type of trainings position, or do you like writing? You could go in technical marketing writers. Yeah, you have to have these skills there. Or do you like to guide people as well or help people in terms of tech service functions, or is something like being very precise and sticking to something important to you? Is quality control something you would be interested in? Yeah, so I think try to find out what really is your strength outside of science as well.
Yeah, are you very nosy and like to ask a lot of questions and go into recruiting?
Yeah, or in sales.
Or in sales, right. Great. So, Carola, I actually don't see any questions coming in. So is there something that you would like to tell our audience or give them on their way?
I think I hope I already gave some input and suggestions here, I would say. Is there anything else I can think of? Let me see. Yeah, I can only say also, be adventurous, yeah? Because sometimes when you read job profiles, of course, this is the description of 3 to 5 years experience in, this is a plus, lots of demands or prerequisites being put down. Look at them, of course, yeah? Make up your mind which ones are really, you can do a clear check, yeah? And which are the ones where you say, these might create some questions, yeah, but keep in mind, nobody, neither you nor I think, would expect that there is a green tick mark behind all of these things. Yeah? So don't be shy. Yeah, yep. Sort of also be a little daring and adventurous in terms of trying. What can happen, honestly? Yeah, the worst thing that can happen is that you get it sent back saying we're very sorry. Yeah, yep. So. But there might be other cases where you get an invite, where you get an interview, and I can only say be also adventurous.
Yeah, definitely. And also take the leap, step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So also you describing the different path within a company. So there's always a way back. When you see that there is a position that you took and in the end it doesn't fulfill you, there's always a way back. So we will not stop someone who stepped out of the lab.
I wouldn't even say back. There is always a different route. Yeah, it's not back to where you were.
No,
it's not
back,
like a setback.
Back to the lab.
So. Yeah, back to the lab, or back to, or maybe explore another function. Yeah. Absolutely, at least within our organization, and I cannot judge on every organization being out there in the world, but very clearly, I think in lots of organizations there would be these other opportunities.
Definitely. And I think actually this is a good takeaway to end our conversation today. So be curious, be adventurous, take the leap, stay out of your comfort zone. And right now there is a question coming in. And it says, is it difficult to move to other departments when you already hold a PhD in biological sciences?
As I said, not within our organization. Yeah, so I know a lot of people who switch between very different departments. It's not so much about being stuck in this swim lane, actually. Within QIAGEN, it's very, very open, yeah, to also look for other opportunities. Maybe the other recommendation is also create your network, yeah, in an organization like ours, because you need to know what is going on, also talk to the other departments and people what they are doing. Build your network. Be the first one to know that something is going on somewhere. Yeah, and somebody is thinking about, hey, we are thinking about creating a position here or doing something there. And building a network in an industry organization is as important as it is in academia. Yeah,
definitely. Great. Thank you so much, Carola, for the insights that you shared with us today and with our audience. Thank you, everybody. Again, thank you for your patience with us. We're sorry for the technical issues that we have, but I hope that you took away something from our conversation today. So have a nice morning, lunchtime, or evening, wherever you are in this world. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
QIAGEN.
Sample to insight.